Hey guys, welcome back to the Fanspo Hoops podcast for episode 3. I'm the host, Emin Robinson, and I'm joined by special guest Invincible.
I'm Mohit.
This is TK.
And I'm Invincible. My Fanspo username is purpleandgold.
And also shout out to our producer, Swagged Up.
On today's episode, we'll be discussing the recent Blockbuster trades we've seen, extensions to some star players, coaching hires, and we'll recap the draft. So we'll get straight into it. So firstly, we're going to discuss the Mikal Bridges trade, which, to recap for the viewers, was Mikal Bridges to the New York Knicks for Bogdan Bogdanovic, 4 unprotected first-round picks, 1 protected first-round pick, and a few second-round picks. What do you guys think of the Mikal trade?
I really like it for the Knicks. They went all in. Some people will say it's an overpay for a guy who's never been an actual all-star, but I think it'd be that final piece for the Knicks and put them over the top and get them a title.
I think it's like a win-win for both teams. The Nets actually also got their own picks back in another deal, which is why they did the Mikal Bridges trade in the first place. And for the Knicks, they get one of the best role players in basketball. He's an elite defender, like when he's not having to carry the offense, and he's a great shooter. He can play off the ball and create every now and then as well. So he and OG should be a great. Having both of them on the same team is a very good luxury to have.
I think it was a good trade, but it hasn't been confirmed yet. If the Knicks have to include McBride for financial reasons, then I'd be a lot lower on the trade than I am now. I'd grade it like an A for the Nets and a B plus for the Knicks.
I think you raise a good point there, Invincible, about McBride being added into the deal. I would, as you would do, my views on the trade would be completely different if McBride's added in. In my opinion, he's the best valued contract in the league. And adding him in would be just a huge mistake if you ask me. And it would be a huge get to start their rebuild for Brooklyn. I like the trade for both teams. For the Knicks, all the Villanova boys back together, good chemistry. And for the Nets, you start a rebuild and it's about time. They got more value than I expected for Bridges. And overall, I'd probably give it an A for the Nets and a B plus for the Knicks. But I do think it's a very, very win-win deal. And with these trades, we saw OG get extended, which just had to happen, or this trade would be a borderline disaster for the Knicks. What do you guys think of the value for the OG extension?
Yeah, I think it was good. Obviously, you have to bring him back. I think you really can't let OG walk after you make this all-in move. Then you let one of your best players that you just traded for walk. It makes no sense to let him go.
I think it was a bit too much, but I think he just has still to do it anyway because he's so valuable to the team. Like what he brings on the defensive end alone is very valuable. But then he can bring you like a good offense as well. He's a good finisher and a good shooter. So yeah, I think this is a good one. Good job by the Knicks locking him down before free agency.
I mean, the value for OG isn't great, but they were kind of cornered because they paid so much for him with IQ and RJ, and they already had 2 great deals contract-wise with Brunson and Mikal. So I think bringing him back was a must, and they had to do it.
For sure. And now you've got 2 of the best defenders on the wings in the league in Bridges and Anunoby. Bridges had a down year defensively, and he was quite poor, but I think the offensive load being gone, Bridges will get back to what he was. And we also saw Nick Claxton get extended 4 years, $100 million. I'll start with this one. I like it because I think it's a really good trade asset and it's good value if you want to just keep him next to Noah Clowney. Because in the small sample size we saw with Clowney at the back end of the year, it was really, really good to see Clowney stretch the floor and play really valuable minutes. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they're going to keep Claxton long-term. And you look, there's going to be a lot of teams that will be interested in a guy like Claxton. And I think they can get at least a first-round pick back for him, probably even more.
Yeah, I think it would have been a disaster if they actually let him walk. I think because he's actually a very valuable trade asset. Like you can get maybe 2 firsts for him in a couple years or something. Because due to his youth and his great defensive abilities. So yeah, I think it's a good job of the Nets locking him up 4 years, being a good trade chip.
Next, we had the Dejounte Murray trade, which came in the last 24 hours. Dejounte traded to the New Orleans Pelicans for Dyson Daniels, Larry Nance, and 2 first-round picks. What do you guys think about this?
I love it for the Pelicans. They had to make an all-in move. This makes them true contenders, in my opinion. And they got him for really cheap. His value is surprisingly low. Only 2 first-round picks. Dyson Daniels. I think they did really good here. For the Hawks, I don't love it. I think they could have gotten more draft capital back. But I like that they have kind of chosen a direction now with getting Risser with the number 1 pick, and now you've traded away your second best player. So it looks like they are choosing more of a rebuilding direction at the moment.
I think the Pelicans filled a lot of needs with this. I think they get a great playmaker when he's the one running the offense. Like we didn't really do much with Trae Young on the team, but remember in San Antonio he was a very good passer, so we'll see that. That's what the Pelicans desperately need. And they need like a point of attack defender as well, so he can shoot the ball. It's a good trade for the Pelicans. And for the Hawks, it's okay. I mean, probably should have got more, but they at least picked a direction. And they got an interesting young player in Dyson Daniels.
Yeah, I really like it for Portland. I think getting Denny, someone who broke out last year and he still can break out again, I really like it. He feels a need where they get a young wing, which they basically didn't have, a young power forward / small forward. I think he's still got a lot of room to grow. I think he fits next to Shaden and Scoot. And whereas for Washington, at first I didn't like the value, and I still don't really like the value. Although you got Bob Carrington and Malcolm Brogdon, who you can then flip again, I still think you could have got more for Denny from a team like OKC or just a lot of different teams who I reckon would offer more valuable assets than that. But I like how they've proven to the outside world now that they're starting a new window, because when Denny's contract this contract will expire, their next window to contend will start. Next, we got Kenny Atkinson hired by the Cleveland Cavaliers, reuniting with Jared Allen and Karis LeVert. What do you guys think about this hire?
Yeah, I think it's a good hire. I think Kenny Atkinson's actually a good coach. We saw with the Nets, he's able to get the most out of a roster. Well, the question though is, can he elevate the team kind of, for a championship caliber team? Like he was able to make mediocre teams get to the playoffs, but can he do that to like a good team to be great? That's the question mark for me.
I think he was the best coach in the market, and the Cavs did well to get him before any other team. And as long as he's who Donovan Mitchell wants, then I think I'd be on board with it as a Cavs fan.
Yeah, I mean, he's been in head coaching cycle kind of for a couple of years now. There's been rumors that he would be hired somewhere, so I really like this for the Cavs. I think he's immediately better than Bickerstaff, who I didn't think did a really good job, especially in those playoff series against the Magic. So I think he'll make them immediately better. I think they can be not quite contenders, but I think they'll be better than they were last year.
I like his ability to develop young players. We saw how he did it in Brooklyn with D'Lo, and we saw what he did with Jared Allen. But I also like the ability to connect with players, which didn't seem Bickerstaff didn't get along with these guys. So hopefully he can help build a culture in Cleveland and not rebuild, but retool the culture from the ground up. Next up, we got 2 massive extensions, with Emmanuel quickly extending with the Raptors on a 5-year, $175 million deal, and Scotty Barnes signing a 5-year rookie extension worth up to $270 million. We'll start with TK. TK, what did you think about this as a Raptors fan?
Yeah, I think we locked up our 2 core pieces. Obviously Scotty Barnes, but we had to do it before. We don't want to make him reach free agency next year, so I think it's a good deal for him. And for IQ, at first thought it was an overpay, but after calculating how the money would look like if it was using the same salary cap, it's not that bad actually. It's just the salary cap going up, so it kind of looks like a big amount in the first place. But yeah, it's a good deal for both.
Yeah, I think they had to extend both Scotty and IQ. IQ was pretty good this year for the Raptors after that OG Anunoby trade. And the Raptors are kind of proving they're not really looking in a rebuilding direction at the moment. They're probably going to try to win now more so.
I'm honestly not a big fan of the IQ extension. I think it was a pretty significant overpay. And I don't think anyone in free agency would have offered him that much. So there was no reason to extend him unless they thought that a team like the Magic maybe would be throwing him a bag.
Yeah, it's a pretty big annual amount, to be honest, for IQ. But I think they had to do it because I reckon a lot of teams would have threw some money this offseason, like the Magic, even like the Sixers. I think for Toronto to have your two young guys plus RJ all locked up, it's a lot of money combined, so they're going to have to make it work. Next up, we got Bam Adebayo signing a 3-year extension, which will pay him over $50 million annually. With the Heat, what do you guys think about this?
That was, it was an insane amount of money that they threw at him. He's obviously was arguably the best player all season this year. He was amazing, one of the best defenders in the entire league. And if they're going to keep competing, they're going to need him around. So it makes sense.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Bam pass on a chance of getting Supermax if he signs his extension next year? If so, then I think that he got a steal. And financially, it wasn't the smartest idea for Bam to sign so early.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I actually didn't hear that. I didn't hear or read that. But if it is true, surprised Bam signed it this early. But talking about extensions in the Heat, you guys see the report that Jimmy Butler is not going to sign an extension with the Heat and he'll enter unrestricted free agency next year. What do you think about Jimmy's long-term outlook with the Heat, and is this his last year as a Miami Heat?
If Miami does end up falling short and disappointing again this year, I do think that he will end up leaving them for a contender in the offseason.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised the last year. I think the window seems to be closing a little bit. I think he obviously shown a lot of regression, so I think the Heat will move in that direction. Instead of losing him free agency.
Next up, we'll discuss a few minor trades. Davion Mitchell and the right to Sasha Vezenkov, which won't really matter because he's going to go back to Olympianos in Europe for Jalen McDaniels. We'll start with you, TK, again as a Raptors fan. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's good. Jalen McDaniels, I think, was not even playing for us. He was a bench warmer, so we got like a rotation guy, and Davion Mitchell was still relatively young. Vezenkov, I don't know if he's going to go to Europe or stay, but if he stays, he's a good addition. So we also got a couple second-round picks out of it as well, so this is a good deal for us. For the Kings, they also free up some cap space. I think some money too to free up the mid-level exception. So I think this is fine for them too.
Next up, we got Tim Hardaway Jr. in 3 seconds, traded to Detroit for Quentin Grimes. What do you guys think about this?
I like the Mavericks picking up Grimes. You look at Tim Hardaway Jr., he was picking up a lot of DNPs in the playoffs. He wasn't really going to be part of the rotation, probably. He had obviously that big game 4, but he didn't really do much in the rest of the playoffs. So they pick up Quentin Grimes, who I think will be better than Tim Hardaway Jr. in the long term.
Yeah, I actually love this for the Mavericks because I think Grimes is going to have a bounce back year. I think last year was a down year. Remember, a couple years ago, he was very good, both defensively and offensively. So I think he'll bounce back playing next to Luka Doncic.
I really like the buy low from Dallas. You get off the Tim Hardaway Jr. contract. You save $12 million. I really like it for them because you bring in another defender who, even when the shot's not falling, you know that his calling card can be his defense. This also makes players like Josh Green, who's got a solid $14 million annually, it makes them expendable, so you can add more scoring punch per se. I really like this for Dallas and Detroit. It's really a nothing move. They're removing a lot of shooting this offseason, and I thought they had to add shooting, but they're still not really doing that. But yes, free agency still to come. Nextly, we got AJ Griffin traded to the Houston Rockets for pick 44. it's a bit of a small trade, but AJ Griffin's still 20, and I think we're forgetting this. He had a really good rookie year, like impressive. Last year, ever since Quinn Steiner came to the fold, he wasn't given the minutes. Didn't really earn it. For Houston, I like getting him. He can be a trade asset, but there's no minutes really open for him to play. Really disappointed that his stint with the Hawks didn't really work out.
Yeah, I don't really like for Atlanta. You give up AJ Griffin for basically nothing. I mean, the 44th pick, it turned into, I want to say, Jurisic, which, I mean, he's all right, but I don't know how much better he's going to be than AJ Griffin.
Yeah, I actually don't know if any of these teams actually won the deal. Like, I think if any other team did this trade other than the Rockets, it probably makes sense because they can probably offer playing time. But the Rockets, I think it's all, I don't know how he's going to get minutes. For the Hawks, you're giving up on a 20-year-old who had a good rookie year. So, yeah, I don't really love it.
I think it was a good deal for both teams actually because AJ Griffin was clearly not in Quinn Snyder's long-term plans. Maybe they could have got another second from the Rockets, but I think it's fine, and the Rockets could use him as a salary filler or an injury replacement in case any of the forwards get injured.
Yeah, well said there, Invincible. So that's the trade news and the extension news of the pod. Next up, we're going to start our draft reviews, our winners and losers. We're going to go a formatted way, 5 picks by 5 picks. So go every 5 pick. We'll discuss picks that we think we need to, and we'll just go from there. So the first 5, opening 5 picks of the draft. Any picks that stood out to you guys?
I think the biggest surprise was Ron Holland going number 5. I thought they would go with Matas Muzelis, but I don't hate the Holland pick, to be honest. I don't think there's a huge gap between Matas and Ron Holland, but I would have preferred Matas to Dejounte.
I'm not a big fan of Ron Holland to the Pistons, to be honest. I think he's just an excess need of athletic wings, which they already have, who can't really shoot the 3 ball. And they really need to prioritize shooting this offseason, and they've already started not doing that, and it's not a good sign.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Pistons taking Holland. He's kind of like Osar, but with more scoring upside and slightly less athletic, I guess. But I would have preferred if they went for Muzelis like Mohit said, or if they traded down and took Salawi or Dalton Knapp.
So, like, I think the Pistons are at the point where you have to start drafting for fit. Like, I think they've already drafted for talent a lot of times, and it's not quite, like, working to their best abilities because its spacing is just not helping their development as well. So I think you gotta start drafting for more of what you need, such as shooting. Like, maybe they should have tried traded down or something.
Yeah, I think they could have traded down for a guy like the Grizzlies could have traded up for a guy like Klingon, and they trade down and grab Matas at 9.
And even if they wanted to get Ron later, they could have, as you said, they could have just traded down, and if they didn't want Matas, they could have just taken Ron. And I want to raise a point. I feel like a lot of teams could have, like, manipulated the process per se. Like, I think Houston could have traded down and they could have still got Reed Shepherd. I think Detroit could trade down and they could still get Ron Holland. I think Charlotte could have potentially traded down and still got Tijan Salon, even though the Spurs were interested at 8. And now that we've mentioned Salon, I'll get into the next 5 picks. I'm not the biggest fan of the Hornets taking Tijan Salon. I like his upside as a wing, and they went for a positional need. But I still think they could have just traded down or drafted someone else. What do you guys think about that pick specifically?
Yeah, I don't like Salon at 6, to be honest. It's just like, it's not good value, to be honest. He's just another French guy who's raw, and we'll see if he develops. But I don't think it's worth it at pick 6. I think it would have made more sense to trade down with Memphis and then maybe grab him at 9 if the Spurs don't take it.
Yeah, not a fan at all. Like I don't know. I'm not. I think he's too raw. He's raw, very raw at the moment. Like, he's got some upside, but like I think it's pretty unlikely he reaches it. Like, I don't know if he's really shown any big time foundational skills to suggest that he'll reach it. But there is a slight chance, and they're probably taking a chance at that. But I don't love it.
Yeah, I feel like Charlotte could have moved down and gotten him. Again, both Charlotte and Detroit should have been in talks with Memphis so that they could move up and take things. but I guess it's an upside swing. I'm assuming they want to tank again for the 2025 class.
Next pick I want to discuss is Rob Dillingham traded to the Minnesota Timberwolves for 2 future first-round picks, 2030 and 2031. What do you guys think about this from both sides?
I'd love it for the Timberwolves. They're trying to win now. Dillingham can immediately come in and provide a bunch of scoring off the bench. And he's going to be a really flashy guy next to Ant. It'll be really fun to watch to see how they play together. And for Spurs, I mean, I don't hate it. I'm not sure how Dillingham would have fit into the team. So it makes sense to trade him, but I would have just rather stuck with the pick and drafted someone else.
Yeah, Dillingham's, I think, a good fit for Minnesota. I think with Mike Conley getting up in there in age, I think he'll eventually take over as a starting point guard. So yeah, I think he and Ant could be a nice young duo for the next maybe 5-10 years. And I think for the Spurs, I think they get a couple of first-round picks, like I think 2030. So maybe it depends how good the Timberwolves are by then. But it's an interesting trade. Maybe more trade assets for another like star they want to get or something in the future.
I mean, I agree with what they said. I think Dillingham and Ed would be a pretty electric duo, both very athletic, and Dillingham's defensive limitations can be hidden by the Wolves. I think I'm not a big fan of Memphis taking Zach Edey. I get that they need to replace Steven Adams, and he's a big body that can set screens for Ja, but I think they could have traded down and still got him at around 15.
Yeah, I agree. I think Memphis, if they really like Edey, the fit makes sense, but I think they should probably just trade down because they can get future assets or even like a win now player potentially from a younger team, and then take Edey in the mid first round pick range.
So I think the Grizzlies are actually one of the few teams that actually can. It's actually a good fit for Zach Edey because he's got a very elite defensive player beside him in Jaren Jackson, and Jaren Jackson's not a great rebounder, so he's got a big time rebounder in Edey. So I think this is actually a good fit. Maybe could trade down for maybe 2-3 spots, 3 spots, 4 spots. I still think he was very highly regarded to the point he might still go in the lottery, but yeah, the fit is good. Could got some more assets if you traded down a little bit.
Yeah, Edey's probably the most polarizing range of a player in this draft class. I was a bit shocked when I saw him go at 9, but as you said, I do like the fit. Interesting to see how Coach Jenkins and just in general for Edey's longevity of his career, how coaches utilize him in the drop and how he matches with his slow feet in the NBA. But other than that, it's not a bad pick. It's just a bit too early, if you ask me. Now to the next 5. I want to start by Martas Buzelis, the hometown kid to Chicago. What do you think about this for Chicago?
I think it's a steal for the Chicago Bulls. I think he was a top 5 prospect in this class. I think getting him at 11 is great value. I think his upside's very high. Very versatile player. I think the Bulls got a good player here.
Yeah, I love it for the Bulls. This is an amazing steal. He fits well, and obviously you mentioned that's his hometown. He grew up in Chicago, and it just makes so much sense fit-wise. And if you look at everything behind, like family-wise and that sort of stuff.
I don't know if this spells the end for Patrick Williams in Chicago because there were rumors that Charlotte want to pay him, and now Buzelis, who is also the best at the 4, it was drafted by them at 11. So maybe they let Williams walk and then dump Vucevic so they can get some cap. I'm not sure how they want to approach the offseason, as there were no reports of them wanting to rebuild either.
Yeah, so it's curious. So say if Williams is actually available, which teams do you guys think could maybe go after him?
I think a lot of teams could utilize his services. I think a 3-and-D, he's got upside as a 3-and-D wing. I think my main fit would probably be the Thunder. I think the Thunder lack, obviously, size, but I think they lack a 4 who can stretch the 3 ball if they were going to bring in a big. I think they desperately need someone of that size to be able to shoot the 3 ball next to whoever they bring in, if that's a Hardenstein, if that's a Jalen Smith would actually be a perfect name also for the Thunder. But also, I like Patrick Williams and what he can offer for any team.
I don't know about Williams to the Thunder, to be honest. He's a pretty small forward, just like J-Dub, and that was one of their main issues, having a small lineup and being forced to run J-Dub at the 4. He's also not a great rebounder for his position. So maybe he would be a nice wing off the bench, but I don't think he would start for them, and he would be too expensive to bring off the bench. I like Charlotte, like I mentioned earlier. I think he could be their long-term forward, and then they can let Miles Bridges walk in free agency.
I saw a rumor that he was actually linked to Toronto. What would you think of that, TK?
Yeah, I actually like that because we need like another big wing defender. Like that's kind of what issues was down the stretch after the Siakam OG trades. Like our defense was very, very bad, so I think he'd really help with that. I think it'll also provide much needed spacing too. So I wouldn't mind it for like maybe $15 to $20 million. 20 million.
I think it would take like an $80 million deal over 4 years for the Bulls to let him walk. So it would have to be an overpay. TK, would you do like 100 over 4 years?
100 I think might be a bit too much, maybe like 90.
We got breaking news live on the pod. The Magic are declining Australian forward Joe Ingles' $11 million team option, but they're going to expect to continue dialogue in free agency, so I expect he'll be back in Orlando. Mohit, what do you quickly think about this?
I like it. I mean, it makes sense. It's worth to pay $11 million for a guy like Joe Ingles, but he will be back, I think, in free agency. Get him on a cheaper deal, and he's just a great veteran presence to have around our young core.
And another live breaking news on the pod. Portland Trailblazers picking up Delano Banton's team option. I expected this one personally because I thought Banton's insanity run since the trade deadline was very, very underrated. What do you guys think about this?
Yeah, so I've always liked his game since he was in Toronto. I think he was a very interesting guy. He's a guard who's like 6'8", who can handle the ball a little bit, and I think he really showed some potential with the Blazers. I think he'll be a nice rotation piece for the next like 5 years or something.
Okay, back to the draft. Pick 15, Kel'el Ware, I want to talk about. He's not much of a Miami Heat player, but I like them bringing in a center who's got floor-spacing upside next to Bam, and just a center in general, because their backup centers over the last 2 years have been pretty pathetic. You got Yurt-Seven, you got Orlando Robinson. They had Kevin Love playing the backup 5, Thomas Bryant, Cody Zeller. Like it's honestly just blasphemous how they go through since Bam got drafted with those backup centers. What do you guys think about the Kel'el Ware draft pick?
I don't really like it. I would have preferred them go for a point guard, maybe a Jared McCain, or like I know I had a mock there, but he ended up falling Tyler Kolek. Maybe trading back for him.
I wonder if they go back to Bam at the 4 again, or would they make Kel'el Ware a backup 5 with Bam starting at 5 at the 5? Maybe they can do either to give them some good versatility, because last year they also had to start like players like Caleb Martin at the 4, which is just not what you want to do. It's too small.
I think they'll start with Adebayo at the 5, and if Kel'el Ware shows that he can space the floor at an NBA level and his versatility on defense translate, then I do think Spoelstra, I could see Spo trying it at least with Bam at the 4. But as Mohit said, I would have rather gone for a guard still. Yes, you got a Rosarian Hero, but I would have loved just a backup guard, which they haven't really had again over the years. McCain, or even a wing and Dalton Connect, who fell to the Lakers. But overall, I don't mind the pick. It shocked me because it just does not scream Miami Heat to me.
I think he would be the ultimate test of the Miami Heat culture, and since he has motor issues, which are well documented, if they're able to utilize his floor spacing upside, I think it's a great value pick at 15.
Next pick I want to discuss is Dalton Connect to the Los Angeles Lakers. Firstly, I'll let Invincible go first because he's a Lakers fan and I just want to hear what he says.
I mean, obviously I'm a great fan. I think it's the best pick of the entire draft. He was a top 10 talent for me and was great for Tennessee in the tournament. I think he would be able to come off the bench and My prediction is average, maybe double digit, and I think he might be a good replacement for Reeves if he does get dubbed for another player.
I love this pick. I think it's the best pick of the draft. I think the fact that the Lakers get a top 7 player in the class for me, someone who's a bona fide scorer, can shoot the three, space the floor. It's just, he's a prototypical player next to a LeBron James and an Anthony Davis. James and Davis in the pick and roll, having Connect and Reeves in those corners, ready to shoot the three ball. His defensive limitations can be somewhat hidden by Anthony Davis and the backside help. Best pick of the draft, and what a start for Redick and Pelinka to have Connect join this Lakers core with LeBron James, Anthony Davis, D'Angelo Russell, and Reeves.
Yeah, I mean, you look down the stretch in the playoff series against the Nuggets, they were really struggling to hit their shots. And I mean, a guy like Connect, that immediately helps to fix that. And it's a huge pickup for the Lakers. I can't believe he fell that far.
Yeah, I think his steal for sure in 17. The Lakers, they get a much needed floor spacer who can create a little bit off the dribble. So I think he'll be a nice 6th man of the year kind of guy in a couple years.
Next, I want to talk about the Deron Holmes to Denver, originally drafted by Phoenix but traded in the deal for the Ryan Dunn trade. What do you guys think about that?
I liked it for Denver. I mean, I've seen a lot in the pre-draft process that he was going to go there and that they were interested in him at 28. But I guess perhaps there's some teams in between Phoenix and Denver that were interested in him. So it makes sense to trade up. I really like the fit there. I think he'll be a great player there off the bench. And you look at a team like Denver, I think they could use a bit more bench help. So I like it.
Yeah, it's a good pick. What he brings on defensive end is very valuable. I think his potential to stretch 4 as well. I think he can be a good role player, two-way role player off the bench, which is what they need.
I was super high on Holmes. If the Lakers didn't pick next, I would have wanted them to pick Holmes at 17. I think Denver got the team here at 22, as he was a top 15 player for me.
Next, I want to talk about what I think is the worst pick in the NBA draft. Value-wise, AJ Johnson to the Bucks at 23. I watched every single game of AJ's NBL career, and when he did play, he was pretty poor. And the fact that a team that needs to win now takes AJ Johnson at 23 when you probably could have got him at 35 to 40, it's just unexplainable. It's unacceptable also. The upside, people talk about how he could be, I've seen comparisons all the way up to Jamal Crawford. I think the upside is also overrated. I think for a team that, again, needs to win now, taking someone who's a project will be playable in 2 to 3, 4 years, unacceptable, and it's the worst pick in the draft for me.
Yeah, I don't get why the Bucks keep looking to get these projects. Like they're trying to hope one of these guys becomes the next Giannis or something. But you got to focus more on building around your Giannis that you already got with some good pieces instead of trying to find another one, which has like a 0.5% chance of happening. So yeah, I don't get it at all.
Yeah, TK put it perfectly. They should not be trying to find another superstar at the moment. They have Giannis. He's getting older. You look at the rest of their core: Chris Middleton, Brook Lopez. They're all getting older, and it's like it makes no sense to try and go and get another project player who's not going to be able to help them anytime in the short term when their title window is closing.
Yeah, it's just unacceptable. As I said, every single game in the NBL I watched of his, even some in person, and the only thing I saw was his flashes of his speed and his athleticism. He was a pretty below par finisher. His shooting was pretty good in his low volume. But again, for a team like the Bucks, taking a player who was probably around 35 on my big board, I just don't get it. And the Bucks need to win now. And you're closing this Giannis window day by day, it seems, with the way Dame was played last year. It was a bit of a regressed year. The way Middleton was in the regular season. It's just stupid, and the Bucks better hope it works out, because we could look back at this in a few years and just there will be some pretty blunt conversation.
Their draft picks have not been good all the last few years. Like I think 2022 Marjan Beauchamp, that's not worked out. Isaiah Todd 2021, that hasn't worked out. Jordan Nwora the year before that, and then Kevin Porter the year before that, which they traded away. So yeah, it's not good at all.
Obviously the AJ pick was the worst pick in the whole draft. It's kind of offset by the fact that they picked up Tyler Smith at 33. So if you swap them around, I guess it's slightly more acceptable. But I feel like they could have picked Shannon, who went later to the Wolves at 23, and he would have been a perfect starter next to Dame, with his on-ball defense and shot creation.
Yeah, if you switch the two picks around, it wouldn't be as bad. But the fact that, again, they take AJ Johnson here and just, even in general, it's just very frustrating for me. And if I was a Bucks fan, I'd be very disappointed. But look, they've done it. We'll just have to, I hope it pans out for AJ. But we'll just have to wait and see. What do you guys think of Isaiah Collier falling all the way down to 29?
I thought for sure he'd be going to Phoenix when they traded down with Denver, but they passed on him for Ryan Dunn. That's a steal for Utah. He can be their point guard of the future next to Dejounte. That creates a really good backcourt. And I mean, in the preseason, he was being mocked in the top 10, and now you get him at 29. I had him ranked in the early 20s in my big board. I thought it was a really good pickup for the Jazz.
Yeah, a big time steal. I think he's a lottery talent for sure. I think he's a very underrated playmaker. I think his shooting actually even got a little bit better down the stretch as well. So I think he'll be a good starting caliber point guard. And getting that 29 is, I think, a big thing.
I think the Jazz had the best draft. They picked up Filipowski as well at 32, which was also a steal. And I think Collier could be their long-term starter if they move Clarkson in the offseason.
Yeah, I was quite shocked Filipowski fell to 32, but after reading the off-court reports, I feel bad for the kid, but we'll stay away from that side of the discussions. Now to the second round. What do you guys think about the Knicks snagging Tyler Kolek at 34 and Kevin McCullough at 56?
The Knicks had one of the best drafts in overall. They got two guys who can immediately contribute in the late second round and the early second round. And Kolek was a guy who I had a first round grade on. I had him mocked 15 to Miami. This is arguably the best pick in the second round.
It's funny because I had Kolek mocked at 24 to the Knicks and McCullough 25 to the Knicks. The fact that they got him both in the second round while still bringing in Kondadier, it's great value for New York. And these two in Kolek and McCullough scream New York Knicks players and Tom Thibodeau threshold players.
I think McCullough had a TJD type of slide, and my guess is that he wanted a guaranteed contract. If the Knicks get him on a two-way, I think that's a deal at 56. I mean, still a steal if they get him on a guaranteed contract, but it would kind of make more sense that more teams pass them.
Next, I think the Pacers getting Johnny Furphy is a very good value. I had a late first round grade on Johnny Furphy. I think his ability to run the floor and shoot the three ball in transition is going to be really useful in the long term next to Halliburton. Reminds me of Ben Shepherd without the defense, but it's more athleticism. And I think it's a good long term fit. He was going to take a few years to develop. He's quite skinny, but I like it overall. What do you guys think about Furphy to the Pacers?
Yeah, I mean, it's an upside pick. I think he can develop into a good player for the Pacers in the future. I don't like they are a team that is trying to win now, but it makes sense because they are still a really young team and the championship window is very big.
Yes, I'm not a big Furphy fan, but I think at 35, that's decent value. I think he can become a nice, eventually become a good floor spacer off the catch, but I don't think he does a whole lot about anything else.
I don't know why the Spurs keep trading their picks. They picked up Dillingham at 8 and Furphy at 35, which are both pretty decent value picks, but they keep trading them away. I feel like if they kept both the players, they would be in contention for a play-in spot, but they probably want to tank for the 25 spot.
Next, I want to talk about Osei Ighodaro to the Phoenix Suns. I really like Osei Ighodaro to the Suns. I think his playmaking, his basketball IQ and his rebounding is really going to be useful next to KD, next to Book, and he can create them open shots as a post playmaker, which I liked what he did. What do you guys think about Iguodala to the Suns?
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, I'm a little concerned that he doesn't really have any. He's not a great shooter at all. I mean, he can't really shoot. So, but I think the playmaking is cool. I think he can be a nice borderline rotation player down the line, maybe.
Yeah, it's an alright pick. He's gonna be a good role player for them, and I think that he can come in and potentially immediately contribute, but he's never gonna be anything like great. It's good value at 40, I guess.
To wrap up the second round discussion, we had Bronny James go to the Lakers at 55. It felt inevitable. There's a lot of discussions about nepotism, like is he an NBA player, and a lot of overreactions about this pick. Personally, I don't think he should have got drafted, but I don't get all the hassle about it. It's pick 55. Not much people pan out at pick 55. Shout out Patty Mills. But just in general, I think it's pretty... just the overall media discussions and Twitter discussions about Bronny James being such a waste of a pick for the Lakers is just utterly just nonsense in my opinion. Invincible, what do you think about this?
I mean, as for the Lakers fans saying that we wasted pick 55 on a non-NBA player, I couldn't care less. We will never be using anyone we picked in our rotation anyway. But I think it's a pretty cool father-son duo, and well, I think the highlight would be pretty cool as well. Like imagine Bronny lobbing it out to LeBron in garbage.
Yes, I think people forget that he actually had top 35 prospect before the health issues. I think that really affected his game. So I think there's a potential that he can be a nice role player, like a Javon Carter type role player. Can play good defense. Maybe he can shoot a little bit.
He was actually 17 by ESPN. So maybe he's actually an NBA prospect. And
before the cardiac arrest, a lot of people had him mocked even in the first round. I think Giovanni had him mocked at 10 at one point. And he's like a good athlete, smart player, and he has good mechanics in terms of shooting, decent defender. And obviously he had a pretty good pre-draft run with the combine and workouts. I don't hate it. It's the fourth last pick in the draft. People are making too big of a deal out of it.
For sure. And that wraps up our NBA draft review / recap. Probably the last we're going to talk about the draft until the season starts, basically. So we're going to return our questions from the people. We got, since James Borrego withdrew from the Pistons head coaching search, who should Detroit look to hire?
I think you should go for JB Bickerstaff. I think he's known for developing well with the Cavaliers. Maybe the Pistons, they need a guy who can do that for them. But maybe not a long-term solution when they're competing again.
Yeah, I think Bickerstaff makes sense. Maybe Sweeney from the Mavericks, he was their assistant. I think he could also be good there for the Pistons.
Next, we got, who were you surprised to see go undrafted in the NBA draft? I'll go first. Not much of you guys might know this player, but Mantas Rubastashevich. I'm very high on this kid. I love overrating NBL players, but I watched him all year for the New Zealand Breakers, and his ability as a 3-and-D wing, his ability as a starter on a playoff team was to perform every single night, shoot 43% from 3. Transitions ability was impeccable. He's playing for the Warriors in Summer League, and I really hope we pick him up because I'm high on this kid, and I think he can be a really good NBA role player.
I like
Next.
Trenton Flowers and Trey Alexander. I think we're two guys who are good, and Justin Edwards, from Kentucky. I think they were good pickups, and I think they'll be good to whichever team they sign with. Probably going to get a two-way.
Yeah, I thought Jalen Bridges have been drafted too. Jalen Bridges was a second-round pick. But
yeah, I was about to say. I also think Blake Hinson. I think the Lakers picked him up on a two-way. He's a shooter who can shoot it from the NBA range and heavily contested shots, and he's a pretty good post-up player as well. I feel like if he was given actual fitness trainers, he'll be able to cut down on his weight and be an actual. Would be a steal. out of undrafted free agency.
Quick interruption. We got another breaking news on the pod. Russell Westbrook has picked up his $4 million team player option, returning to the Clippers. What do you guys quickly think about this one?
I like it for Russ. I like it for the Clippers. I mean, it's $4 million. It's not that much, and it makes sense. He wants to stay in LA. It looks like they're gonna choose contending path if Paul George does come back, which that'll be interesting to see.
We'll segue into that quickly. Do you think Paul George will come back to the Clippers?
Originally, I did think so, but now I'm not really sure. I saw rumors that they're not going to offer him the max, and I think chances are it's going to end up being a sign and trade somewhere.
I don't think he's going to be staying. I think the Clippers are kind of still bluffing a little bit. I don't know. I think eventually they'll pay him.
And man, what do you think of Paul George to the Warriors?
I like it. I think ever since KD left, we've been poor to get Steph a second scoring option. And Paul George is still a very good contributor. His defense is still very good. His three ball was still very good. His ability to score, it's still what Paul George does. And we got to give Steph the chance. If we're not going to fully rebuild, then I think we need to give Steph the chance, and that means parting ways with one of our young guys, and we have to do it, and I'm all for it. Because I just want to see Steph Curry have a chance to win another ring, just compete, instead of just losing seasons for the rest of his career. So if that means trading away a Kuminga or Moody, some first-round picks, I'm willing to do it.
What's the most you'd give up for him? Would you give up Wiggins, Moody, and Kuminga, as well as your 2 firsts?
See, there, I don't think I would. I would only give up one of Moody or Kuminga and then take a first if it's Kuminga. And then if it's Moody, then we'll keep the 2 first. I'm still very worried about this team's future, but as I just said, we need to utilize this Steph Curry window.
Yeah, I agree with you. Do you think they'll waive Chris Paul or include him in the Paul George?
I think he'll get waived. I think we're just holding out to see if the Clippers wanted a point guard or just a team wanted to join him in the third team. But now Russ is back, so I don't think the Clippers would want Chris Paul. So I think we'll just waive him and he'll ultimately sign elsewhere. Again, another breaking news. We talked about this dude earlier on the podcast. Kevin Love has declined his $4 million player option with the Miami Heat. Yeah, if I was Love, I would have just picked it up, I think. I don't know if Kevin Love will get any minutes at the NBA level anymore. He's still a very valuable third stringer. I like what he would bring there, but I would have just picked it up personally. We're seeing a lot of team options / player options getting picked up here. I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 5-10 minutes before we wrap it up if we get news on Paul George or Klay Thompson, something like that. So hold out here. But another question we have is, what are the best team fits in free agency? If a player who fits on a certain team, something like that.
I think Reed Shepherd to the Rockets. I think the Rockets need like one guy who can he doesn't need the ball in his hands to succeed, because they have a lot of other talented players. So you can kind of play off with all these guys. You can, as a 3-point shooter, you can come off screens. And he also brings them some good defensive effort as well.
I like that answer. Now, in terms of free agency, what do you guys think are the best player / team fits?
I've been seeing Klay to the Mavericks recently, which is very interesting. That was a new rumor that popped up. What do you guys think of that?
I don't know how they'd make it work. It would have to be a sign and trade where we get something. We'd probably get Josh Green, which I wouldn't be opposed to. If my Aussie bias will come into play here, but it would be weird to see Klay in another uniform. It's inevitable at this point. But back to that trade, I think for Dallas, I'd actually really like it, because the amount of open threes Klay Thompson will get, and he won't have to create his own shot. And Klay's still a very good NBA 3-point shooter, especially catch and shoot. I would really like that for Dallas. Clay can ease the scoring punch also.
Yeah, I agree. I think he'd be a good third guy next to Kyrie and Luka. Stays where Kyrie does have off nights, like in the finals. I think Clay can step up and kind of help for that lack of 3-point shooting when Kyrie struggles.
Yeah, I think it's best for Clay to I think being more the third option instead of the second option will really help his game. He doesn't have to do stuff off the dribble. He can play more off the ball, which he's more good at. And playing with two great creators can really help him.
Where do you guys think Kentavious Caldwell-Pope ends up? Obviously, there's that report about the Nuggets not wanting to join the bidding war for KCP if teams offer quite a bit. What do you guys think about that?
I think Philly makes a lot of sense.
I wouldn't be surprised to see them take target. But yeah, I also think Philly would give him a bag.
Thank you for joining us on the episode Invincible, and thank you for being the first guest on the Fanspo Hoops podcast. This will wrap up episode 3 of the Fanspo Hoops podcast. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next time.